Listen closely because this could be the most important message you hear today, especially if you've started to notice those little slips. You know the ones, walking into a room and completely forgetting why you're there, or having a name hover just out of reach, frustratingly close but utterly elusive. I'm 85, and I remember a time when my mind felt like a light flickering, dimming slowly, threatening to go out forever. My grandchildren's names, once so easily recalled, would occasionally vanish from my grasp. Reading became a battle, as I'd reread the same paragraph countless times, the words blurring without comprehension. Everyone, even loved ones, would gently tell me it was just a normal part of getting older, something to accept, but a deep, persistent part of me absolutely refused to believe that. I couldn't bear the thought of spending my final years adrift in a fog of confusion, disconnected from my memories, my identity, and the people I cherished, terrified that each new day would steal another piece of what made me, me. Then, almost by chance, a revelation struck. I stumbled upon an interview with a doctor who spoke passionately about a specific group of everyday foods that held extraordinary power over brain health. This wasn't about magic pills, expensive supplements, or miracle formulas. It was about real, natural ingredients, foods that have been with us all along, capable of giving our brains precisely what they need to function at their best, even as we age. Intrigued, though skeptical, I decided to give it a try. I didn't expect a revolution, but slowly, undeniably, something began to change within me. Little by little, the fog in my mind started to lift. The maddening habit of forgetting where I'd put my keys, my glasses, or even my thoughts became less frequent. I started recalling conversations with remarkable clarity and detail, and the most profound, most beautiful change of all, I felt present again. It was as if my mind, which had felt like a distant, fading friend, had returned to me, vibrant and whole once more. In this video, I want to share with you the 5 simple, natural foods I incorporated into my daily life and how, combined with just a few small adjustments to my routine, they completely revitalized my memory and transformed the way I live. I'm not a doctor, nor do I claim to have a cure, but I am a living witness to the incredible power these foods have had for me. We'll also delve into what science has to say about them, empowering you to decide if this is a path you want to explore. This isn't an empty promise or an overnight miracle. It's about making small, consistent daily choices that have the power to change absolutely everything. I'm genuinely eager to hear from you. Tell me in the comments below how old you are and where you're watching from, and I can't wait to read your stories. My journey into memory loss began subtly, with small, easily dismissed moments. At first, I'd rationalize them. It's normal, I'd tell myself. Everyone forgets a name now and then. But then these occasional lapses became more frequent, more alarming. I'll never forget the time I spent nearly an hour searching for my keys, checking every coat pocket, scanning the kitchen, the bathroom, even bizarrely, the refrigerator. They were eventually found on my nightstand, precisely where I put them every evening. I laughed it off, but deep down, a small alarm had begun to ring. The repetitions followed, more painful than the forgetfulness itself. I'd start telling my granddaughter a cherished story from my youth, and she'd interrupt with a kind but weary smile. "Grandpa, you already told me that yesterday." Each time my heart ached because I had no recollection of having spoken those words before. How could I be so certain of what I was about to say, yet completely unaware I'd already shared it? Soon I began to shy away from long conversations, dreading the moment my train of thought would derail, or a blank would engulf me mid-sentence. Sometimes I'd wake unsure of the day, or open a kitchen drawer with no idea what I was searching for, or find myself standing in a room, utterly clueless as to why I'd entered it. Yet the profound forgetfulness wasn't the worst part. It was the terrifying sensation of slowly disconnecting from myself, as if the very fabric of my identity was unraveling. My memory wasn't just a function, it was my story, my choices, my loves, my very essence. To feel it slip away was like watching someone I adored walk out of my life, powerless to stop them. Fear gripped me, fear of becoming a burden, of forgetting the faces of those I loved most, of losing sight of who I was. And then came the shame, a silent companion, because no one wants to appear confused or out of touch. So I retreated, feigning normalcy, pretending everything was fine, which only amplified my isolation. It was at that desperate juncture, believing there was no hope left, that I resolved to try everything. Because even if conventional wisdom suggested cognitive decline was an unavoidable part of aging, I was determined to fight. Not to turn back time to my 30s, but to fiercely hold on to who I was, right here, right now. And surprisingly, it all began with one simple change, a small adjustment that ultimately redefined everything. When I finally stopped pretending and acknowledged the truth of my struggles, I scheduled an appointment with my primary care doctor. It was difficult to admit I needed help, especially after years of believing I could handle anything. But the persistent brain fog, the relentless forgetfulness, and that unsettling sense of disconnection had become too pervasive, too much a part of my daily existence to ignore. My doctor, with his customary warmth, listened intently, asked several questions, reviewed my medical history, and conducted a series of basic memory, attention, and language tests. I tried my best, but there were moments of frustrating blanks, and my answers often came slowly. He wasn't overtly alarmed, but neither did he offer the reassurance I desperately sought. His diagnosis was phrased gently, mild cognitive impairment. He explained it's common at my age, doesn't always progress, but, he added, there's no cure. His recommendations were the standard fare: keep mentally active with crosswords and reading, socialize more, find new hobbies, prioritize sleep, incorporate daily movement, and reduce stress. When I inquired about medication, he mentioned available drugs, but cautioned against them for me, citing potentially strong side effects and benefits that were, in his words, not always as clear as we'd like. I left his office feeling a strange mix of relief and profound frustration. Relief that it wasn't something more immediately dire, but deep frustration that his message, despite its kind delivery, felt like, this is part of aging, just accept it. I, however, refused to settle for merely staying active and hoping for the best. I craved true improvement, a resurgence of clarity, memory, and that vivid sense of being truly present. That burning desire spurred me to begin my own research. I wasn't searching for magical cures or impossible remedies, but rather a fundamental starting point: my diet. If what we eat affects our entire body, why wouldn't it profoundly impact our brain? That question ignited a path that, little by little, brought back what I once thought was irrevocably lost. One unassuming afternoon, without actively searching for anything specific, I stumbled upon a video featuring a retired neurologist discussing brain aging. Her words struck a chord that resonated deeply. What you eat not only nourishes your body, it nourishes your mind. And if you choose wisely, you can help your memory stay with you much longer. My curiosity was instantly piqued. I devoured articles, watched endless talks, and delved into various scientific studies. Again, I wasn't seeking a miracle, but practical, actionable ideas. Among all the information I absorbed, one food consistently emerged as a powerful ally for the brain: blueberries. Yes, those tiny, unassuming fruits I'd often overlooked in the grocery store for years. It turns out they're bursting with antioxidants, especially potent compounds called flavonoids, specifically anthocyanins, which are responsible for their rich, deep blue hue. These substances are crucial because they help combat oxidative stress, a primary culprit in damaging our neurons over time. A study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry, for instance, revealed that older adults who consume blueberries daily for 12 weeks experienced noticeable improvements in both short-term memory and learning capabilities. Another compelling study from the University of Exeter found that even a daily serving of blueberry juice enhanced brain function and blood flow to the brain in older participants. This isn't just a fleeting fad. There's substantial science underpinning these claims, and the best part is, you don't need expensive supplements or intricate preparations, just a simple handful each day. So I decided to commit. I bought a container of fresh blueberries and for several weeks made it a morning ritual to enjoy them, either mixed into plain yogurt or simply on their own. At first, the changes were imperceptible, but by the second week, a subtle shift began. I felt a renewed alertness in the mornings. My recollections became less clumsy, and that persistent mental fog, that sense of being slightly disconnected, slowly started to dissipate. It wasn't an instantaneous transformation, but more like a gradual brightening of lights, that had been steadily dimming. What surprised me most was that beyond the improvements in memory, my overall mood lifted too. I felt more energized, more fully present, as if something dormant within me had gently reawakened. This was merely the beginning, a small, modest fruit yielding a mighty impact. From that moment, I knew I had to keep exploring. If just one food could achieve such a change, what possibilities lay ahead if I invited more allies into my diet? Once I committed to seriously improving my memory, I quickly realized that sporadic healthy meals wouldn't suffice. The true key, I understood, was routine. What you consistently do every single day, without fail, because consistency is the most powerful force for transforming both body and mind. So, I started with the most fundamental meal, breakfast. For years, my breakfast had been a simple cup of coffee, maybe a cookie, nothing more. But now I swapped it for something designed to truly nourish my brain. Blueberries, which had already shown promising effects, became the centerpiece. My typical breakfast is now delightfully simple: plain, unsweetened yogurt, a generous spoonful of chia seeds, a sprinkle of chopped walnuts, and a hearty handful of those wondrous blueberries. Occasionally, I'll add half a ripe banana for an extra boost of energy and potassium. This entire preparation takes me less than 5 minutes, yet the profound difference in how I feel is immense. Crucially, I established a fixed time. I wake at 8 a.m. every day, even on weekends, and I eat breakfast before 8:30. No delays, no waiting for hunger pangs. Starting my day with this kind of meal not only keeps me feeling satisfied, but also imbues me with an enduring mental clarity throughout the entire morning. I've noticed those blank moments, where words would escape me, have become a rarity. Words now flow effortlessly, ideas connect with greater speed, and even small details like remembering the page I stopped on in my book the previous night or the exact spot I placed my keys are no longer a problem. One morning, my grandson called frantic because he'd lost his mother's phone number. In the past, I would have fumbled, rifled through old papers, or asked him to hold on while I searched. But that day, without even consciously thinking, I simply recited it from memory. It came to me effortlessly, just like in the old days. That moment was incredibly significant to me, not because it was some grand intellectual feat, but because it underscored that I was reclaiming something I genuinely thought was gone forever. And the most astonishing part, it wasn't due to some expensive pill or complicated medical treatment, but a simple, natural, daily routine. Of course, my focus wasn't solely on breakfast. I diligently began paying attention to all my meals. Less sugar, less white bread, more vibrant vegetables, and more healthy fats. But that first meal of the day truly marked the beginning of my transformation. If you're experiencing similar struggles, if your mind feels less sharp than it once was, please do not underestimate the profound power of a thoughtfully planned dietary routine. It might seem like a minor adjustment, but it has the potential to make a truly enormous difference. Witnessing the undeniable benefits of blueberries fueled my belief that I was on the right path. However, I knew that relying on one powerful food alone wouldn't unlock my full potential. So, my research continued, driven by an insatiable curiosity. I immersed myself in more articles, watched countless interviews with neurologists, nutritionists, and longevity experts, and a clear pattern consistently emerged. Healthy fats are absolutely fundamental for optimal brain function. This realization led me to my second powerful ally, the avocado. Yes, the creamy green fruit I had often considered a luxury or reserved for special occasions. It turns out avocado is one of the brain's most silent yet potent protectors. Avocados are rich in monounsaturated fats, which are critical for improving blood circulation and keeping our arteries clean and healthy. Why is this so vital for memory? Because a well-perfused brain is a brain that consistently receives the oxygen and essential nutrients it needs to perform at its peak. Furthermore, avocados are packed with vitamin E, a powerful antioxidant, and potassium, which helps regulate blood pressure, all factors that significantly reduce the risk of long-term cognitive decline. Studies even suggest that individuals who regularly incorporate avocado into their diet exhibit improved attention, concentration, and mental processing speed. I started modestly with just half an avocado a day. Sometimes I'd slice it onto a piece of whole grain toast with a squeeze of fresh lemon, Other times, it would find its way into a fresh salad alongside tomatoes, onions, and a drizzle of olive oil. I even learned to create a surprisingly delicious and healthy smoothie with avocado, banana, and a splash of plant-based milk. What struck me most was how quickly my family began to notice a difference. One day, my daughter commented, "Dad, you seem so much more alert lately, more cheerful, more focused." And my granddaughter, who used to patiently endure my repeated stories, actually hugged me after one tale and exclaimed, "You remembered the whole thing." In that moment, I knew this wasn't mere imagination. There was a tangible, undeniable improvement. Avocado wasn't a magic bullet, but it was an incredibly powerful tool. Not only did I feel mentally sharper, but my mood experienced a notable uplift as well. Less irritability, fewer frustrating little forgettings, and a newfound desire to engage in conversations, go for walks, and read a book without constantly losing my place. And the best part? It's not an expensive ingredient, and you don't need to consume it every single day. 3 or 4 times a week is perfectly sufficient. But as with all things, consistency is paramount, because what you protect today safeguards your mind tomorrow. That is how avocado, this silent protector, earned its indispensable place in my routine. And with its inclusion, I began to truly understand that the path to a clearer mind isn't paved with grand, dramatic gestures, but rather with small, consistent habits that, over time, transform everything. For many years, I harbored an unfounded fear of fats. I had been indoctrinated with the belief that anything fatty was inherently bad, leading to high cholesterol, weight gain, and should be avoided at all costs. Consequently, I rigorously purged them from my diet. What I tragically failed to realize was that in doing so, I was inadvertently depriving my brain of its most essential fuel, severely hindering its ability to function optimally. Our brain, you see, is predominantly made of fat, and to keep it youthful, vibrantly active, and rich with healthy neural connections, it absolutely demands the right kinds of fats. This crucial insight prompted me to introduce the third pivotal food into my daily regimen: nuts, more specifically, walnuts and almonds. Walnuts, in particular, often feel like nature's perfect design for the mind. Not only do they bear an uncanny resemblance to miniature brains, but they are also a powerhouse of omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants, vitamin E, magnesium, and polyphenols. These compounds orchestrate a synergistic defense, protecting our delicate neurons, fortifying synaptic connections, and enhancing the vital communication pathways between brain cells. Almonds, meanwhile, are a rich source of monounsaturated fats, protein, and essential minerals, acting like a clean-burning fuel that empowers the brain to perform at its peak, especially as we advance in years. I recall my initial skepticism, wondering how such small, unassuming items could possibly exert such a profound impact. Yet, with time, the transformation became undeniable. I began recalling vivid details from my childhood, precise dates, intimate conversations with my parents, the very scents and textures of my childhood kitchen. It wasn't as if those memories had vanished. It was as if my mind could suddenly illuminate those distant rooms of my past, bringing them into sharp, clear focus. One unforgettable morning, while chatting with my grandson, I effortlessly blurted out my 4th grade teacher's full name, a name I hadn't consciously thought of in decades, followed by a tune we used to sing in class. It wasn't an effort. The memory simply flowed as if it had been patiently waiting to be summoned. For me, this was a profound gift. I began consuming a modest handful of nuts each day. Nothing excessive, just 5 walnuts or a handful of almonds. Sometimes I'd mix them into my plain yogurt, or simply enjoy them as a satisfying mid-morning snack. They're conveniently portable, require no preparation, and have bestowed upon me a mental clarity I genuinely hadn't expected to reclaim at my age. And crucially, I finally shed my fear of the word fat. I learned it's not about elimination, but about making intelligent, informed choices. My cholesterol levels are now better than ever. My energy has soared, and that dreadful afternoon mental fog I once experienced has completely vanished. The brain doesn't thrive on extreme diets. It craves balance, comprehensive nutrition, and unwavering consistency. And if this stage of my life has taught me anything, it is unequivocally this: it is never, ever too late to provide your body and your mind with precisely what they need to continue shining brightly. Sometimes we fall into the trap of believing that true health demands sacrifice, that to feel good we must strip away all pleasure. Yet through my own experiences, I've discovered this isn't entirely true. There are indeed sweet indulgences that not only delight the palate, but also profoundly nourish both body and brain. For a long time, I scrupulously avoided sweets. I harbored a deep fear of sugar, those jarring energy spikes followed by debilitating crashes, and the inevitable guilt that shadowed me after consuming anything enjoyable. But one day, while engrossed in an article about optimizing brain health in older adults, something utterly captivating caught my eye. Dark chocolate. Not just any chocolate, mind you, not the kind laden with milk, excessive sugar, and artificial additives. The focus was specifically on dark chocolate with a minimum of 70% cacao, hailed as a true brain superfood. Pure cacao is a treasure trove of flavonoids, potent antioxidants that are instrumental in improving blood flow to the brain, effectively reducing inflammation and safeguarding neurons from the insidious damage wrought by oxidative stress. In essence, they actively contribute to keeping our brains younger, more alert, and impressively resilient. What's more, cacao stimulates the release of endorphins and serotonin, those natural mood-boosting substances. It's as if a small piece of good quality chocolate has the power to gently relax the body and noticeably uplift the spirit. And in my personal experience, that profound sense of well-being undeniably enhances our ability to remember more clearly, remain more fully present, and connect with the world around us on a deeper level. I began with a single small square after lunch, just a tiny piece, never more. I'd let it melt slowly in my mouth, savoring each nuanced flavor without rush. This quiet moment became a cherished daily ritual I gifted myself. Over time, the transformation became apparent. I experienced less afternoon anxiety, my focus when reading deepened considerably, and a renewed enthusiasm fueled me when I sat down to record memories in my journal. But the sweetest moment unfolded one afternoon, sharing a simple snack with my grandchildren. Fruit, nuts, and a few squares of dark chocolate. As we sat on the terrace, they asked questions, and I recounted stories. Then, without conscious effort, I began to recite a tale my own mother had told me when I was a boy, word for word, exactly as she had. I hadn't recalled it in decades, yet there it was, vivid and complete. It felt as if someone had shone a powerful flashlight directly into a long-forgotten corner of my memory. That day, I knew I wasn't merely recovering scattered memories. I was reclaiming precious moments, forgotten emotions, and profound connections. Of course, discretion is vital. Not all sweets are beneficial. I rigorously avoid highly processed products brimming with sugar. I abstain from sodas and commercial pastries. But a small piece of high-quality dark chocolate, or even a teaspoon of natural honey in my tea, has become an integral and treasured part of my routine. And I do it not just for the taste, but because it genuinely helps me feel alive, clear-headed, and truly present. This is how I discovered that pleasure and health are not adversaries. Sometimes, when chosen wisely, the sweetest things can indeed heal. Throughout my life, I've been bombarded with tales of exotic foods, miraculous supplements, and new diets emerging every month, each promising boundless youth, flawless memory, and endless energy. But after so many years, I've come to a profound realization. Often, the most powerful and transformative things aren't rare or exorbitantly expensive. They are found in the simplest, most accessible elements, things so common we frequently undervalue them. This was unequivocally the case with the fifth and perhaps most fundamental food on my journey, water. Yes, as astonishingly simple as that, water. While it might sound anticlimactic to some, I assure you, once I began drinking water consciously and consistently, my mind experienced a leap forward I never dared to anticipate. Because for our brain to function at its peak, it absolutely demands to be adequately hydrated. Water isn't just a transporter of nutrients. It diligently flushes out toxins, meticulously regulates temperature, keeps our intricate neuronal connections actively firing, and crucially, improves the vital blood flow to the brain. Before this realization, I was the type of person who only drank water when a strong thirst compelled me. A small glass here, another there. Hours would often pass without me realizing I hadn't had a single drop, and predictably, by afternoon, I'd feel utterly drained. My concentration would waver, and my words would catch in my throat. I used to blame it all on advancing age, but it wasn't just age, it was dehydration. So, I made a decisive change. Every morning, I started my day with a large glass of water immediately upon waking, followed by another before breakfast. Throughout the day, I carried a small bottle, making a conscious effort to sip regularly, even if I didn't feel thirsty. The difference didn't take long to manifest. I began thinking with remarkable clarity, recalling names much more quickly, and reading without the frustrating need to reread the same line repeatedly. I felt an invigorated alertness. Even my mood saw a dramatic improvement. Less confusion, less irritability, and a newfound desire to converse, to write, to learn. And water, in its remarkable simplicity, amplified the positive effects of all the other foods. Without proper hydration, our bodies cannot efficiently absorb nutrients. The good fats, the avocado's vitamins, the cacao's flavonoids, they all require the right internal environment to perform their magic, and water provided that fertile ground. I also complemented this by incorporating gentle infusions like green tea or rosemary, which offer additional antioxidants, but the foundation remained unwavering: clean, fresh, natural water. Sometimes, the most powerful elements are the ones we utterly take for granted. They don't boast spectacular flavors or market themselves as miracles. Yet without water, nothing in our body, and especially not in our brain, can function optimally. Today, if you were to ask me which single food has most profoundly transformed my mental clarity, energy, and unwavering desire to keep learning, I would tell you without a moment's hesitation, water. Because it is the fundamental base, the very beginning of everything. And the most wonderful part is, it's there, freely available for you, for me, for all of us. When I first embarked on these dietary changes, my sole objective was to reclaim my memory, to effortlessly recall names, never misplace my keys again, and smoothly follow a conversation without getting lost mid-sentence. But what unfolded was far deeper, more profoundly transformative than I could have ever imagined. These foods didn't just reawaken my mind, they awakened something within me that had long lain dormant. The first palpable shift was in my mood. I used to wake some mornings feeling utterly unwilling to leave my bed, drained and despondent, as if each day was merely a dreary echo of the last. But steadily over time, I began to feel more uplifted, infused with a vibrant new curiosity. I awoke with a fresh kind of energy, that small, invigorating spark you feel when you have something exciting to do, something new to discover. Mental fatigue also began its slow retreat. Previously, after a short period of reading or watching the news, my head would feel heavy, as though my mind tired far more quickly than my body. That too transformed. I started reading entire books again, devouring pages without the frustrating need to reread each paragraph. My thoughts flowed freely as I resumed writing in my journal, and my sleep, what an absolute wonder. For a long while, I slept poorly, waking multiple times throughout the night, struggling to drift back into slumber, only to wake in the morning more exhausted than when I had gone to bed. But after conscientiously improving my diet, hydrating properly, and consistently incorporating these nutrient-rich foods, my rest dramatically improved. It wasn't an instantaneous change, but it was steady, undeniable progress. Now, I sleep more deeply, more peacefully, and awaken genuinely refreshed. I also noticed that the stress and anxiety, which sometimes accompanied me for no apparent reason, began to recede. They didn't vanish completely. After all, I am still human, but they no longer governed my days. I feel significantly more balanced, more at peace, and the most beautiful, most cherished part of this entire journey is that I reconnected with the world around me. I started participating more actively in conversations, taking a renewed, genuine interest in current events, recalling facts and sharing them with others without the pervasive fear of stumbling or forgetting. I even dared to learn new things. Not long ago, I enrolled in a short online history course that I enjoyed with the enthusiasm of a child. Memory was the initial catalyst, but the benefits have extended far, far beyond, because when you truly care for your mind, you nurture your spirit. You open yourself fully to the present moment, and you begin truly living again. And that, at any age, is an immeasurable gift. At 85 years old, I had mournfully resigned myself to the idea that my time of lucidity was inevitably slipping away. I truly believed it was normal to forget names, to lose the thread of a conversation, or to stand silently, utterly unable to recall why I had entered a particular room. I had convinced myself that this was the definitive beginning of the end, that the mind, much like the body, was destined to slowly fade into obscurity. But what I hadn't yet realized, what I desperately needed to learn, was that it could ignite again. This transformation didn't happen overnight, and it certainly wasn't a product of magic, but it was undeniably real. At first, I could only recall the simplest things, like what I'd had for lunch. Then, I began to find words more easily, to link ideas without effort, to engage in lively conversations without falling behind. One day, I surprised myself by completing an entire crossword puzzle without any assistance. Another time, I effortlessly remembered an old friend's phone number, a number I hadn't seen written down in years. But the most beautiful, most profound part of it all was that I recovered something far more precious than mere memory. I recovered my confidence. I began to feel truly alive again, brimming with an eager desire to learn, to read, to engage in long, meaningful talks with my grandchildren, to laugh heartily without forgetting the punchline, to share anecdotes without losing my train of thought, and even to begin writing my memoirs with a newfound clarity and pride. And it all began with something remarkably simple: changing what I chose to put on my plate. I'm not advocating for some miraculous, restrictive diet. There are no magical secrets or instant, overnight solutions here. What I discovered was a path paved with real, nourishing foods, steadfast consistency, sufficient water, an insatiable curiosity, and an unwavering, deep-seated desire not to give up. Because that, my friends, is the single most important thing: never giving up. If you, like I once did, find yourself struggling to remember, if you sometimes feel your mind is cloudy or perhaps slower than it used to be, please do not accept it as inevitable. Start today with just one small, manageable change, one you know you can stick with. Add one truly beneficial food to your daily intake. Drink more water. Allow your magnificent brain to breathe again. I did it at 85, and whether you are 60, 70, 90, or even older, you absolutely can do it too. What I learned, above all else, is that it is truly never too late to awaken the mind, never too late to take proper care of yourself, to regain that precious clarity, to feel that vital spark ignite within you once again. We may not be the same as we were at 20, but we can still feel alive, alert, and fully present once more. My story isn't unique. It represents a powerful possibility, and that possibility is waiting there for you too. And you, have you noticed any changes in your memory lately? Perhaps you struggle more to find certain words, or you find yourself forgetting little things from day to day, or maybe you just feel your mind isn't working as efficiently as it once did. Please know that you are absolutely not alone, and most importantly, you are not without options. Today I've shared what truly worked for me. I don't claim to hold the absolute truth for everyone, but I do understand what it feels like to look in the mirror and wonder, what is happening to me? And I know the sheer joy of smiling again when you suddenly recall something you thought was lost forever. Now, I genuinely want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments below, what foods do you consciously eat to care for your mind? Have you made any changes to your diet that you've truly noticed making a difference? And please, let me know which country you're watching from and how old you are. I truly cannot wait to read your stories. And remember, your experience, your shared insight might be precisely what inspires someone else, just as countless others inspired me when I needed it most. If this video resonated with you, if it offered even a flicker of hope, please share it. Send it to a friend, a child, or perhaps an elder who sometimes feels it's simply too late to improve. Sometimes all someone truly needs is a little hope. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.